Hello and welcome back to XCOM 2 Long War of the Chosen. My name is Syken and we're going to talk about the guides today. This first video is supposed to give you an overview of all of the changes in Long War of the Chosen and basically do a very brief recap of the most important things that you have to know to kind of summarize the mod in under 10 minutes. If it's only one video that you're going to watch, you might want to take this one here just to take as much info out of it as possible. Before we get started, the typical plug, shameless plug for self-promotion. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoy the videos and leave a comment down below. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Long War 2 is a mod that has been designed by Pavonis Interactive, the creators of Long War, a very famous and dedicated indie development team that is looking to basically turn around the core aspects of the game and make it a bit more complex and longer, so, hence the name. So what exactly does that entail? For those of you who want to look it up in detail, I recommend the Long War 2 wiki, which is a great starting tips. So basically a couple of things have changed within Long War. Let's start with number one, the obvious ones on the tactical layer. The soldiers have now been broken up. 4 classes originally have been broken up into 8 classes. Essentially every single class was taken and 2 subclasses have been created out of it. For instance, the Grenadier has been migrated into a gunner, someone who focuses only on the heavy gun, and the new Grenadier, which is a class that focuses only on the grenade aspects. What Long War does with that is they have much more emphasized the point of specialized niche class instead of a broader team. They upgraded the number of soldiers to start with on the missions to 6. It can go up to 8 and even up to 10 in specific missions later down the road. Second most important change with the soldiers is there's a complete revamp of the perk system, which we are going to go through in the individual soldier class guides. Essentially, it will give you a selection in between 3 different skills every single time. The skills are neatly clustered into certain themes, and you basically need to force pick or make force decisions to select which of those 3 options you would like to have. There is no such thing, even in the Long War version, of getting 2 skills on the same tier. The only thing that you can get are certain additional unlocked skills. In Long War of the Chosen specifically, they also added the hero classes, so the 3 that the game itself offers, and haven't changed them much yet. One additional feature to the soldiers is also the introduction of officers. That is a concept where essentially one of your team members, whoever has the highest officer rank, can get a specific training. You can train theoretically all of the soldiers, but only the one with the highest officer level will be activated in a mission. Those extra skills offer a certain extra slates of skills, such as reduction of damage from explosives for everyone, higher movement rate, yada yada. So it's more a supporting feature where one of the characters can even increase his or her usability within the combat. So that's it in a nutshell for the soldiers. Of course, the weapons have been modified. Quick summary here. An additional tier of armor has been added in between the classical laser weapons and the plasma weapons. So there's a magnetic tier or pulse tier in there, which now adds a longer research path. The equipment has been widely overhauled. Strong equipment has been highly nerfed, whilst additional equipment has been put into the game. Some equipment even completely disappeared. disappeared. In a nutshell, the equipment will become more important. To reflect that, everyone received an additional equipment slot, so that you start with 2, later 3 equipment pieces, where all of the soldiers can be individualized. Finally, the XP curve of all of the soldiers has been massively modified, so that it will be much more difficult to go to a higher level. Moving on to the changes that the mod made to the overall strategic layer. The classical expansion strategy, I would call it, is no longer the only way of playing the game. The game has made big strides and efforts to give you a so-called haven or resistance management. So you can see that across all of your settlements or all of the areas, you will have a haven management. The haven management represents so-called resistance operatives that work on your behalf, and they can be put to supply, gathering supplies for you, recruitment, basically recruiting new rookies and new resistance operatives, and intel, which allows you to spot new missions right away. That is a feature which is incredibly important to play the game, so it gives the whole game a completely new tactical layer. With that, there are a couple of other changes to these strategy layer. Most noticeably, the existence of strength, vigilance, and force, which I can explain in detail in one of the future guides. Essentially, one is strength describes the amount of enemies, or the difficulty of the enemies that you're going to find. Force describes the amount of enemies that you're going to find in this area, and vigilance describes the AI's knowledge of your activities within this area. All 3 of them will change based on your actions, and it will require a separate video to go through that in detail. In a nutshell, imagine the entire world here as a large map, such as the board game Risk or Axis and Allies, where the AI essentially can shift resources to other areas and will start with an equal distribution amongst the world. As you start causing trouble in a certain area, they will shift more and more troops into that area, which will have a few other effects that we can go through in detail as we speak through the changes in the detailed videos. Moving on with the other changes that have occurred, the haven management. We talked about that shortly. There is an option now to create squads of your soldiers, so fixed groups of soldiers that work together over and over. That option allows you to basically deploy a fixed SWAT on a certain mission. There have been various mission types that have been added. Too much to cover in just one brief video. Essentially, now we're having close to 15 to 20 different mission types. Some of them require in-depth knowledge about what to look out for. The mechanics of evac as well as alien reinforcements on the actual missions have changed quite a bit. You cannot no longer immediately evacuate. It takes some time, and that brings us to probably one of the other most significant changes, which is this the change of infiltration. You cannot immediately go on missions anymore. Essentially, you need to infiltrate them. It is, in a nutshell, a concept where the less people you take onto a mission, the faster the infiltration will work, and the less enemies you're going to face. The more people you put in, the longer the infiltration time, and the more enemies you're going to face. And it is a pretty exponential curve. So at at the beginning of the game, expect if you put anything more than 4 or 5 soldiers onto a mission, it will probably take you too long to fully infiltrate. Not fully infiltrated missions, on the other hand, mean that you are going to face twice, thrice, 4 times, even 5 times the amount of enemies that you would normally take. That's the way of the game telling you that you are essentially need to be very, very picky with the missions that you're taking, and you also need to be very picky with how many people you're putting onto that mission. That wraps it up with a 10-minute quick run through the entirety of Long War II. There's much more to it. There are changes to the buildings. There are some changes to base building. There's a lot of change to the research tree, none of which is ground earth-shattering or ground-changing. And there are a couple of changes towards engineering and so on as well. But the things that I covered in those 10 minutes should give you a pretty good idea about what's going to happen. Overall, I wish you the best of luck with the mod. And if you're interested in any of the details, feel free to watch the other guides. I'm going to cover most of the stuff in an individual session. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.